Hey, he's really feeling it right now, huh? Endow me in a bed of roses. Yeah, you get him. You go, Caligar. Yeah, you walk. RP walking. Oh, yeah. We're doing that RP Space Marine walk.
Cover me! Brother, wait! Go!
Oh, no.
For your service, all the suffering of humanity for the Carrion Emperor. It's all for nothing. Rise, son of Gilliman.
Brother, it is over. You did it. Brother!
Rise, Titus. Your duty is not yet done.
He's half dead. He's like, get up, man. Just get up.
For the Emperor! For the Emperor!
Okay, so wow, man. We finished Space Marine 2, Warhammer 40,000. And, bro, when I was walking into this game, you know, when I saw the trailers, I said to myself, this looks pretty good, but I'm hoping it's not going to be a disappointing game. I'm hoping it's not going to be woke or massively woke. When I was looking at the trailers for Space Marine 2, it got me really hyped up because it was looking promising, but then I kept on asking to myself, what is the product actually going to turn out to be? After finishing the game, I have a lot of things to say about it, but one of the main things I think I have to sit here and say is, for one, this is a game that's like a blast from the past. This is a game like a lot of the military shooters we used to get. Gears of War, Medal of Honor, go down the list. Of course, Call of Duty, what it used to be. It's meant and it's made for dude bros. It's made for men. This is one of the most masculine universes you can imagine. Warhammer 40,000. Space Marines are just freaking masculinity overload. You know, these guys are freaking beefed out. I mean, they obviously, you know, they're biologically engineered, so they're basically on massive steroids and all kinds of stuff, but bro, holy crap. This was a good game. I will say that, for one. Now, we have a lot to say about this, but I will just simply putting it at the front. Great game. There's a bunch of things about it that were just absolutely amazing, took me away. Man, this is one of those games though. It suffers with a problem that a lot of older games had, which with the story was basically non-existent for a large portion of the game. The plot, the narrative, sucked. I'm just gonna be honest. It was thin as ice. Now, there was a lot of good moments, but effectively speaking, this is one of those games where there's no story throughout the entire middle section of the game. There's a lot of games like this where basically the bulk of the story is at the beginning of the story and the end of the story. Now, the beginning is cool. It's not really like the craziest, but it's cool and it's good. The ending, I would say, was really good. When I ended this game, its story, I walked away being like, whoa, you know? I got that feeling that we went on an awesome, crazy adventure. We had this awesome story where we got connected to our characters, and you're walking away like, oh, frick, you know, don't go. I want to keep going. I want to keep on being in the world of Warhammer and Space Marines. Like, it's so cool. I want to stay here and spend a little bit more time with it. That's kind of the feeling you get at the end of the game. And of course, you, at the end of the game, you walk away from your diversity brothers, your diversity squad, your black brother, Space Marine brother, and your Asian Space Marine brother. And we have a few more things to say on that, but that's just me saying it, broaching it with a little bit of a broad brush. And you walk away from them to go join your white brothers on the next mission for supposedly the next game. I'm guessing it's the next game. So that's going to be interesting. There's a lot of things in Warhammer to go into past the Tzeentch, and the Tzeentch are pretty much the focus of this game. Them and the Tyranids, although the Tyranids, they kind of fall into the background a little bit later into the story. But anyway, I can see that the next game is probably going to be about the Necrons and some other factions, so that'll be interesting. But man, this was an interesting game overall. The ending got me in the freaking feels, by the way. I have to say that. The ending was one of those endings where you're like, man, I'm not freaking crying, you're freaking crying, man. You know, one of those kinds of endings. You have this ending where Titus, he basically gets himself killed. I mean, and then he's rebooted by Calgar saying, "Rise, son of Guilliman." And it's such an awesome scene. It's such an awesome moment in the story, because it's just these freaking masculine freaking dude bros, and they just fought against the armies of evil and darkness that they're facing off against. And then you've got Calgar, who I think was in one of the previous games. I forget which one. But he sits there and he's like, "Rise, son of Guilliman." And it's just so awesome. It's so funny because, like, Titus, throughout the game, the main character, he's freaking risking his life. He's about to get himself killed. Well, then, you know, effectively he did get himself killed by the end of the game. And he's still being told by, it's so funny because he was crawling up the staircase to the little turnkey electrical conduit generator, whatever, that is, I guess, activating the powers of Imura. And by the way, Imura in this game, I think it's a dude, but also I guess he has an avatar. Whatever, I don't really know how it works. Don't care. He looks freaking great. The freaking avatar of Imura looks amazing. And I know him from, by the way, from playing the game Age of Sigmar, a game to which would have been really freaking good if it was more like an RTS game such as Halo Wars 2 or Age of Empires 4 or Dawn of War. If the game was more like one of those games, it would have been much better. But I will say this about Age of Sigmar, the game. Realms of Ruin is a part of the title of the game. The units in that game are so cool. The orcs in that game are so cool. all of the factions, the Imperium of Man, the Necrons, I believe, or I forget what they're called in that game. Anyways, the undead dudes, they're all so cool. They're so much fun to play. Well, you know, okay, I'm sorry. I have a review for that. It's not like it's that much. It's so cool to see them attacking. The animations are great. The freaking bosses look so cool. The avatar of Imura looks amazing in that game. And you will see a lot of attacks from the Age of Sigmar game in this game during your boss fight against the avatar. So you see a lot of great characters, a lot of great enemy types in this game. And it was a really good time, I will say that. But, you know, it's interesting because the gameplay for this game, I will say this first and foremost, very thin as ice. Quite frankly, it's kind of boring. Once you go deeper into the game, you're like, okay, this is really redundant. There's not enough going on here. I'm just going to admit it. The enemies are slightly tankier than necessary, and what really kills the momentum of battle, of combat in the game, are the executions that you have to do on the special units, the tankier units, you know, the non-grunt units. Fighting those guys is really annoying because having to execute every single one, and typically you have to do that for the large part, it just makes it really slow and it makes it feel like a slog. And I'm not trying to criticize the game too much, but that's just something I have to say, is that there's something that's really like wearing down on you as you're playing the game. And it just feels like the combat's too redundant. It's kind of slow to go through. And I like the combat for what it is. It just feels like it kind of a little bit drags out. And that's just me being absolutely honest. I don't want to be too critical on this game, but I also don't want to sacrifice any of my honesty. So I'm trying to be as honest as possible here. That's what I think. So anyway, it is good though. The combat overall is good. The mixture of ranged attack, the variation of weapons is pretty satisfying. The variation for melee is alright. Melee feels mostly fine, although it's like it's not the greatest. And honestly, I think there could have been way more depth on the combat in this game. They tried to do a lot, and I appreciate everything that they tried to do. It's just that it could have been a little bit more, you know? So that's me being absolutely critical of the combat. Overall, it was fine. It didn't completely overstay its welcome. But let's just put it like this. I had a hard time getting through the game, the campaign, and I was not really that excited to play through the operations, which is the multiplayer matchmaking extra missions. So this game has 6 campaign missions, by the way, and then it has 6 operation missions that you can play through the multiplayer, okay? I don't know if it's cinematic. I don't know if there's any cutscenes. I don't believe there is, but you can play with other people through matchmaking, unlike the campaign. So that's cool for what it's worth. So basically, by the way, there's overall like 12 missions in the game, but basically 6 main missions and then there's 6 sub missions, right? That's the idea, or side missions. The PvP, I've played a little bit of it. And I haven't completely finished it, but I will say this, it's actually fun. I was not expecting that. And honestly, it makes great use of what the game is. It actually adds a couple of new abilities that you can use in the PvE matchmaking missions. Some of these other classes are really cool that you can play as. Their abilities are cool. And when I was playing through the PvP, I was actually having fun. I was like, oh, you know, all of these abilities and the way that Space Marines fight, you know, I haven't played that much of it yet, okay? So I might have some other thoughts the deeper I go. But I will say this. It actually got me sitting there saying to myself, I want to keep on playing this. It's actually fun. I was actually enjoying it. So it is something that I can actually see myself coming back to. And that is hard for me. Like, there's a lot of games I'm like, this is a waste of time. I don't want to play this. This actually feels like it's a good use of time because it's enjoyable. It's fun. And I think they're actually going to be adding more content. And I think they're actually going to be adding a new PvE mode. I've heard this. I don't know if it's true, but I think there's going to be a new PvE mode later down the road. So that's cool if that's true. I enjoy those aspects of the game. I enjoy the PvP. I have not done the PvE missions. From what I can tell, you know, it's just more of the same old, although you get to experience these new classes. I think there's 6 classes, and I've used some of them. There's one that has like a grappling hook, so you can grapple into enemies and attack them that way. That's pretty cool. There's a bulwark class, there's a sniper class, there's a couple of interesting, cool classes. So, and there's a heavy class as well. So, I do look forward to trying it out in the coming future, but so far, everything, I've largely enjoyed it. So anyways, would I say that the game is worth, with all that in mind, would I say that the game is worth $70? I would probably say it's, you know, okay, so this is the thing. You know what? Honestly, I won't say whether or not it is. I would say it feels a little bit overpriced for me. But it's tough to say that because a lot of hard work did go into this game. Now, let me tell you this. The storyline for this game was not worth $70. I'll tell you that. The gameplay felt like it was $40 or $50, okay? Probably closer to $40, I will tell you that. The storyline felt like $30. The gameplay felt like $40. However, the freaking levels, the skyboxes, the world design was terrific. That was worth $100. If you are buying this game as a masterpiece of artwork, this game is, dude, if you want to freaking jerk it to freaking Warhammer, this is it right here. The worlds look beautiful. I was literally sitting there saying to myself as I was playing the game, I was like, you know, I almost want to just like walk through every single level really slow, and I just want to take it all in because it's so beautiful. The worlds, the space marines, I mean, the characters in general look great. The Tyranids look great. Everything looks great. The space marines, though, they look absolutely beautiful. The lighting is great. I mean, back 10, 15, 20 years ago, we would see some gameplay of games that ended up being really disappointing. You know, No Man's Sky, Watch Dogs, go down the list. There's a bunch of games that you would see a lot of E3 trailer footage and you would be like, whoa, that's going to be so good. And then the game comes out. The Division is another one of those games. And also Destiny is another one of those games. You would sit there and say to yourself, whoa, this game looks so good. I can't wait to, seriously, I cannot wait to pick it up and play it. You pick it up and the game has massively degraded graphics. And why is that? Because we had older gen consoles and also all of those graphics were on the PCs. Well, now consoles, they finally have caught up with a lot of, and also the engines, right? Unreal Engine 5 is a huge contributor in all of this. I mean, the technology in general has gotten so much better in the gaming industry that now we're sitting here. Space Marine 2 is the game that we've been waiting for. The graphics that this game has is like showcase freaking graphics all game long. It looks like a cutscene as you're playing the game, man. It's so freaking good. The game is beautiful. The Space Marines, they look beautiful. They look so awesome, so legendary. Like, this is a Space Marine, man. And you're like, frick. Seriously, them with their helmets on and everything, they look freaking awesome. It's kind of funny. They kind of look like Mega Man. So it's very obvious that Warhammer and Space Marines, they were made around that time era where we were getting a lot of those mech suit designs. Because also we saw that in Fallout, right? The Fallout series has a lot of these like Mega Man-esque designs. And it's fine. It's fine. It's just something to notice. But man, Space Marines look so good in this game. And there's so many variations in their pauldrons and in their armor. They look awesome, man. I freaking love it. So when I say to you, like, what is the worth of this game? Is it worth $70? Again, I'll tell you, the story is worth $30. The ending is really what saves the story. The story otherwise is like $10. But the ending is pretty good. It makes you feel really good at the end. I mean, it feels like freaking brotherhood. It feels like freaking masculinity. You're like, heck yeah, man. Like, frick. This is a good ending. And it makes you nearly tear up with all the elements of like Titus, you know, being told get up by Calgar, even though he nearly died. And realistically, he is dead. But it's like, I love the freaking masculinity in this game because Titus is basically dead, right? His body has been shut down. And Calgar sits there. When Titus is basically dead, he says, "Rise, son of Gilimon," which feels so like Rise, son of Rome kind of esque theme. And by the way, the Space Marines have a lot of Roman themes about them, but also Crusader themes. It's a mixture. It's a little bit of a mixture of the two. But it is so cool though, just having that ending. And then Titus he wakes up, right? And he's like making noises like, and stuff like that. Basically, his body's rebooting. I mean, it's worse than waking up. It's like, frick, I definitely died and I don't know if I can get up. He's given a hand by one of his brothers, right? That you fight alongside with in the game. And Calgar sits there and he's like, get up, right? And again, it's so funny because Titus nearly dies getting to that keystone that he has to turn, and it basically kills him, I think. And even in that scene, Calgar's telling Titus, get up, finish your mission, right? Like, no matter what. And this is such a heavy aspect, by the way, of both heroism and masculinity. Not femininity, masculinity. This is what makes a man, is absolute perseverance. And also, of course, what makes heroism is masculinity. What is a part of this? Perseverance is a huge aspect of heroism and masculinity. That is the absolute ideal. This is not a feminine trait. This is a masculine trait. And of course, nowadays you have so many cucks, they want to believe that's not the case. This game is so great for highlighting this, however, and just really doubling down on Calgar sitting there and telling Titus, you need to keep on going, you need to keep on going. Even when it seems like Titus is dead, he tells him, get up. And so Titus gets up. And it's just like, man, it's so legendary. The writing for this game is so good. And so anyways, right, when I talk about this, the story is basically $30. The ending really saves the game. It's a great ending. It just makes me really miss the characters immediately. I'm like, oh, frig, don't take me away. You know, I'm loving this. I'm loving the characters. I love Titus. I love Calgar. I love all these guys. You know, I love the Space Marines. I love their brotherhood. I love this masculinity, all this stuff. And so at the end of the game, you're regrettably ending the game, even though, quite honestly for me, I wasn't loving it the whole way through. And again, the gameplay is basically $40. It doesn't feel like it has that much depth. But again, when you look at the game, when it comes down to art, and it comes down to art direction, it comes down to the technical level, the freaking, the skyboxes and the special effects in the game, it's beautiful. It's such a cinematic game. It's epic. It's awesome. There's so much scale. You feel when the game wants you to believe that the Space Marines, the Imperium of Man, are under direct threat by the enemy. You feel it. You're like, holy crap, that's the enemy. They're tearing through us. We are tearing through them. You feel like this is a war. So they do great there. And either the quality on that level, I can say is $70, or I can say it's $100. Again, as an art piece, as artwork, this game is worth $100. Absolutely, that amount of work has been put into it. So it's really hard for me to tell you, like, is it worth the money? I mean, really, it just comes down to, what do you value? Do you value the story? $30. Do you value the gameplay? $40. Do you value the art direction and the technical direction? those things knocked out of the park, absolutely terrific. Do you want to see Warhammer at its absolute finest? The finest fidelity and graphics you can ever ask for. The finest looking Space Marines that you can ever ask for. The way they walk, bro, is freaking cinematic. You believe these guys are in their freaking hunking suits of metal, and you're like, this is a Space Marine. Just the way they walk. I mean, dude, again, I was going through the game, looking at the environment, being like, I want to walk slow, not only because I want to RP walk, because walking slow is awesome as a Space Marine in the game. You just feel like a freaking dude. You feel like a freaking Chad, you know? But you also sit there and you're just looking at how beautiful and how much detail to the world there is. There's so much detail everywhere. And like, there are corners of the game that most players are not even going to look at. There's little cubbies. You have no reason to go over there, but the developers, they put so much time into fleshing out the world and really making sure that it has the absolute highest quality, that there's these beautiful environments, lush environments, metal environments, concrete environments, right? There's all these different environments. They all look so beautiful. You want to walk slowly through each environment and just take it all in, because it's so clear that so much work went into developing the environments. The lighting is beautiful. Graphically, this game is next gen. You want to know next gen? This is it. This is amazing. This is 10 out of 10. And again, if you want to reward these developers, if you are a fanatic of Warhammer, I mean, I would just say start buying a bunch of Warhammer, but specifically buy this game and buy it at $100, $120. If you want to see a game that respects and honors Space Marines, the way that they look in their freaking armor, and if you want a game that honors the universe of Warhammer, how the characters look, how the levels look, the environments look, freaking amazing. If that's something that you love and that you care about. And that's where I'm kind of at. Now, let me also say this. I say that the plot and the narrative is not that great for this game, and that is true. It is $30. It's not that good. $10 without the ending. Honestly, I mean, I think that I don't know. Or maybe like $20. I don't know. It was really not that memorable, not that great throughout the story. There's many elements I respect and I care about, but it's just like, you know, you're not looking back on it. You're not thinking to yourself, I'm going to remember this. And I want to mention this right now, right here. I was experiencing this game and it came down to me at the end of the game, partly because of the ending, but also just how well they honor Warhammer as a whole, as a world, as a game. I sat there and I said to myself, holy crap, I just realized something here. This is a game that we are going to be looking back on saying, that was so good. That was so good. That was the pinnacle of games during this time. This game is something we are going to look back on. It was really freaking good. And it brings us back to the nature and the spirit of when games didn't have all this unnecessary politics. It had this raw masculinity, unforgiving masculinity. It was so good. And that's where it brings me into the writing. The writing of the characters. The writing of the men in this game. By the way, I have to say this. The voice acting is pretty good. Now, I have to mention this. The best voice acting I've ever seen in gaming, I think, comes down to the Arkham games, Arkham City, Arkham Asylum, a little bit Arkham Knight. And then we look at Diablo 4. I hate Diablo 4 for many reasons. Gameplay, loot cycle, and specifically the story. Screw that stupid story. However, and the characters. Holy crap, I hate the characters. The voice acting, however, is some of the best voice acting, I would have to say, in all of gaming. And maybe, you know, there's other games that are up there, of course, but man, Diablo 4 is really good. Every time I'm listening to the characters, it just feels like I'm there. So they did, and this is a game, you're not even seeing people's faces, and you feel like you're right there speaking to them. The voice actors do a terrific job. Now, the voice actors for this game, they do a pretty good job. The men for this game do a great job really selling the scene and selling their role in the scenes. However, I think that there are better voice actors out there that could really bring up the notch, or these guys themselves could have really put in a lot more oomph into their performance. However, they still did a great job. I'm just saying they could have leveled it up to be absolutely legendary, and they didn't quite hit that. Does not matter. They still did a terrific job doing their job, and in the end, they did a great job in the voice acting department. Now, on top of this, I have to say that the writing was also really good. The writing, I was like, frick, this is amazing. Frick, this is awesome. Just the things that the characters say. Like, the fact, bro, the masculinity. You see, there's this huge problem that we have with modern day entertainment. Modern day characters, modern day stories. We have this huge problem, which is what? Modern day, our characters and our stories are built around egalitarianism. This story does not give a freaking crap about egalitarianism, and it freaking rocks. These guys are so masculine, the way they talk to each other, the way that they talk in general in the world. You know, they sit there and they say lines like, pain deepens devotion. They will be sitting there. It is so awesome. They will be freaking like risking their lives. They'll be freaking suffering through battle. And you have these guys, they'll sit there and they'll say, you know, brother, are you okay? And they're like, I'm all right. Pain deepens devotion. And it's so funny to hear. You're like, holy crap, that's hilarious. But just hearing that, pain deepens devotion, it's so awesome. And that's the kind of mindset that these freaking dudes have in this game. It makes you feel like a freaking space marine. You're like, heck yeah, man. Let's freaking go. Let's go to war. Let's go. I love the freaking perspective of the Space Marines, how they're just so unrelenting. They're so ruthless. They will sit there and say things like, I'm going to slaughter the enemy. I'm going to slaughter the men, the women, the children. Hold up, Anakin. You're getting ahead of yourself there. But these guys, they're like, I don't care who's in my way. I am going to slaughter whoever's in my way. They will be slaughtered right before me. I will drive them out. Right, basically Conan the Barbarian. It's so cool, man. I freaking love it. The writing is so good. It's masculinity overload. It's freaking brotherhood overload. You know, all the Space Marines, they sit there like, they're like freaking brother. It's so good. You know, they're always questioning each other's like purity, right, to the cause and to their faith and their devotion to the Imperium of Man. And I love the Crusader mindset of these guys. I love the writing. I love how they talk about stuff. You know, you have other characters, they're like, utilize your hate. Utilize your hatred. And this is something I've hated for the longest time, is how we vilify concepts. And this is, by the way, this is a part of masculinity, and we've been tucking it down for so long in modern products. They sit there, they don't pussify these dudes. They literally say stuff like, hatred. I fuel myself with hatred. I will fight and I will kill these enemies through hatred. It's all about their hate for the enemy, and they will not let up. Part of their motivation is their hate, their hatred for their enemy, for the bad guys of the world of Warhammer. They're not going to let up. They go through the pain. It deepens their devotion and they're so loyal to their cause. They will not give up. They're so dedicated because they have enough hatred for their enemy and also enough faith and all those things to the brotherhood. This is masculinity 101. These characters, the world, it is great. It is terrific. I love it. Effectively speaking, if you want to cure being a freaking soy boy, play this game, meld yourself with the freaking mindset of the Space Marines, and you'll be a freaking man. But you see, there's something beautiful in this game about the characters and about these men, about the Space Marines themselves, how there is this unrelenting masculinity about them, and it makes them so awesome. It makes them so noble. And it's like, this is something that we are now missing today. These are men who have something to live and die for, and they believe in what they're fighting for so much that they would live and die for the Imperium of man. They would die for their fellow brother, and it's this absolute masculinity where it's like, I will fight, I will die for my hatred of my enemy next to my brother. I will bleed next to my brother. Why? Because I believe in what we're fighting for. That is so awesome. It's so amazing. It's so beautiful. And this is something that we lack so much in modern day. It sucks, you know, we don't have these themes anymore in modern stories. And by the way, this is a huge issue with egalitarianism and our modern day sentiments, is that we tuck away the things that so many generations of men, they understood what these things meant and why they were so important, right? Having a faith, having devotion, not giving up and stuff like that, their perseverance, having hatred, understanding these things, because none of these things are actually bad. Having anger, having hatred, having whatever else. The things that we say are wrong and evil today, no, they're good. They can be bad, but they're also really good. And a lot of the things, by the way, today that we say are good, they're also bad. They can also be bad. And right now today, we're seeing how a lot of those things are bad. So what you've got to understand is that reality is conditional, not categorical. How most people want to look at reality is that it is categorical, not conditional. This is, of course, is how egalitarians think. They think in a way that is equalitarian, where we equate all things, race, gender, whether a man labors or not. That's what socialism is, equating the man who labors with the man who does not labor. And ultimately, you're taking from the man who does labor to give to the man who does not labor. Socialism, communism, that's what it is. This is the issue that we see, however, with a lot of philosophy coming out of modern day egalitarianism, where people sit there and they say, who am I to judge, right? Who am I to say what's right and wrong? Other people, they sit there and they say, oh, you know this, you know that, oh, you see that one person's bad, but you know, everyone's a little bit of bad. No, there's certain types of people who have higher percentages of bad than other people. This is the issue that we see nowadays, is how much people want to equate all things. And we've gotten to this point where we want to say that men and women are equal, right? Well, a male accountant is just as good as a female accountant. Well, do you want to know what demographic owns the majority of debt in specifically America? 2/3, the last time I looked at the numbers, I don't know if they've changed. 2/3 of student loan debt is what? In debt in general, is owned by who? Women. Do you want to know how much of credit card debt is owned by who? Take a wild guess. Everyone's equal, right? You would assume it's 50-50, men and women. No. Slightly more than 3/4 of credit card debt is held by women. So, do you trust more a male accountant or a female accountant? Well, maybe you should start thinking about it, because when we look at some things going on right now, right? There's a lot of overspending today. For instance, when we look at modern societies, specifically when we look at America, there's a lot of overspending. Well, gee, we've also brought in a lot of women. Oh, gee, by the way, the individual that's in charge of the treasury, it's a woman. It's a woman. Yeah, right now, you look at a country like America, it is going into freaking debt. It is killing itself in debt as a country. And right now, you have a lot of women who are leading the helm of these institutions. Gee, I wonder if that has any linkage whatsoever. Is there a synergy between those two things? Maybe not. Of course, when we look at all the stats, it does have a link. But whatever, let's just overlook that, right? Yeah, it's totally not gonna catch up with you and be a freaking disastrous problem in the future. So anyways, man, the freaking Space Marines are so cool in this game. And the essence of masculinity is at absolute overload. The essence of brotherhood is at absolute overload. It is so good. It is so awesome. It's freaking great, and I love it so much. Now, I've passed all of that. Let's now mention this. The writing, right? I said the writing. I would say the writing is pretty much at a $70 or $60 value, okay? It is much higher in quality than the story. And that's what gets me asking certain questions. I'm very confused. Why is the plot so bad in this game? It's so forgettable, except for the ending of the story. But it's kind of clear that it's like, okay, the quality of the writers for this game, these guys, they know how to write. They know. I love how freaking concise they are. They're straight to the point. They don't meander. Now, there is an issue with the story in this game, though. You have no idea who's what, who's who. You have no idea what's going on in the story half the time. You have no idea what's going on. And honestly, I think you have to be someone that's in love. You have to be a super nerd with the world of Warhammer to actually know what's going on. Effectively, that's the reality of it, but these writers, still, I love the way they write. It's absolutely masculine, male writing. I love it. Because the way that the freaking characters speak to one another, they have an eloquence of their speech, of their words, of their thoughts. But on top of this, the characters also, they get to the point. They say exactly what they mean to say. They say it, and then they move on. They say information in a condensed, eloquent way where we're not using too many words and not too little. They're speaking their thoughts with absolute quality in mind, and I absolutely love that. I absolutely respect it, and it's something that going through the story, I'm like, frick, listening to everyone talk, there's a lot of quality behind the way they speak and think, and quite effectively, these are writers who understand how to package value, something a lot of modern writers, they don't understand. And these are also writers who understand how to utilize dialogue to build out the world around yourself as the characters are speaking. So they do a great job there as well. Now let's get down to what I really have to criticize about this game. It is ridiculous the amount of diversity that we see in this game. Yes, there is forced diversity. For some reason, the Space Marines, we've got a black Space Marine and other black Space Marines. And we also have Asian Space Marines. It's so ridiculous. What the frick is going on? Let's be very clear about this. Warhammer 40,000, 40K, is inspired on what? Crusaders. It's inspired on what? A lot of Anglo-Saxon themes from a Christian way of facilitating and looking at the world. It is a white man's property. It is a white man's world. It is ridiculous that we have black, Asian, anyone that's just not white, okay? Anglo-Saxon, European, anyone that isn't of this background. It's ridiculous that we have Space Marines like this. What is going on? But for some reason, we force in this diversity that has no place in Warhammer. It's so frustrating to see because this is not the world. There's no excuse for it. You have a lot of people. They try to dance around it. And this is something I was asking when I was talking about this game previously, when I was playing through the game in my playthrough. I sat there and I asked this question. I was like, the people who make excuses for diversity, do they even believe their own argument? Do they even want what it is that they're fighting for? No, they're virtue signaling. They're virtue signaling because and so that they can sit there and look like a good person, so that they can convince other people, oh, I'm not a mental or existential degenerate, whatever. There's something about you that is ethically pure. So philosophically, you can't attack me. I'm a good egalitarian. This is ridiculous. Nobody believes in this stuff. In reality, what we are seeing before ourselves here is that no one believes in this. Whenever you see a product in any kind of franchise diversify itself and wokeify itself in this manner, everyone checks out. People are not invested. People are not engaged. And nobody wants to support this kind of dog crap. This is what we have here. Listen, it is jarring that we have black and Asian Space Marines. That is not what a Space Marine is. And quite frankly, that's not what the world of Warhammer is. Warhammer is about white people in space. That's it. That is the fiction. That is the fantasy. There is no excuse and there's no reason to start throwing in diversity. That is only done because of modern day woke political, ideological sentiments and motivations. That is a problem and it's screwed up. At the end of the day, honor what something is. And again, nobody's stopping anyone from making some kind of African fantasy universe that I guess a bunch of African people want to engage with or whatever. I don't care about that, but no one's stopping them. Go make your own thing, but stop invading these properties. When a white man makes a property, like The Witcher, for instance, The Witcher is based on what? White people. This is getting tiring that we keep on sitting here and saying that white people can be Indians and that white people are black, right? You have so many people nowadays, they say that the British are black people. No, the British are white people, Anglo-Saxons. And it's so ridiculous. Can someone that's British, for instance, someone that's Anglo-Saxon, can they just walk into Japan? Can they just walk into Africa and say that they're Japanese or Nigerian? The answer is no. This is ridiculous. But for some reason, when it comes down to white people, you have so many people who want to hijack the race. This is ridiculous. We have to say stop. We have to say this is enough. Stop hijacking white culture and white people. Enough is enough. Same thing is happening, of course, with the Americans. What is an American? No one can answer that to you today because no one knows. Because now so many people, they want to color wash and culture wash what is an American. What is, though, an American? It is a Western European. That is what an American is. Americans were who? Anglo-Saxons, Irish, Welsh, Danish, go through the list. Just the diaspora of Europe. That is what an American is. An American is not Hispanic. It's not black. It's none of these things. An American is European. Of course, you have the whole thing with African Americans. They've been in the Americas for a long time. And of course, Lincoln, sadly, he wasn't able to send them back to their country. And that is something that Abraham Lincoln wanted to do. Regardless of the fact, American was always what? European, Western Anglo-Saxon, that whole thing. Nowadays, you have so many people, they want to color wash and culture wash white people. Quite frankly, it's enough. And let's just say it, man. A lot of people, they're getting fed up with this. And frankly, a lot of Americans, they're getting fed up with sharing their country and sharing their future. Who died, by the way, for America in massive droves? How many people died for America? Leagues upon leagues of white men died for America. This is not okay for us to continuously sit here and say that, yes, you're black and you're American now. Yes, you're black and you're European now. No, you're not. You cannot just hijack someone's race. Enough is enough. And quite frankly, a lot of people are getting sick of it. So when I look at the diversity of this world, of this story, of this game, what we are seeing is the invasion of the woke onto the demographics of Warhammer. Nobody wants this. Even the people arguing for this, they don't want it, because when they do get their woke crap, they don't support it. And quite frankly, nobody likes it. Right now, this is starting to seep into Warhammer. That's a problem. And again, let's be very clear about this. You always notice no one's running off into the colored countries. Nobody's running off into Africa saying, I'm an African now. No one's running off into India saying, I'm an Indian now. You only see it with the melanated countries. They're running around going into white countries saying, I'm a white person now. No, you are not. So I have to say that because that's ridiculous, and you have a battalion of people who are going to try and make excuses for the diversity in this game. Then we look at the feminism in Space Marine 2. We have a lot of female mercenaries on the frickin' force. We have a lot of, and by the way, they want to start pushing female Astartes, female Space Marines. Unacceptable. That has no place in Warhammer. But aside and apart from that, it is so annoying in this story because we have a female major leading the Cadian army, okay? The Cadians who are fighting alongside the Space Marines in the Imperium of Man, as I understand it. The Cadians are being led, and you have this freaking diversity ESG female who's bossing around a bunch of male soldiers. It is ridiculous. She's yelling at everyone, hey, go there, bro. Hey, do this, that, and the other thing, bro. I'm a man now. Listen to me bark orders at you. And you're looking at, by the way, the majority of the fighting force is what? It's male. And you know how ridiculous it is? That's like the majority of the fighting force is going to be male. It's always been male all throughout history. In present day, it's male. It's always been male. So it's so ridiculous because it takes you out of the world. It takes you out of the immersion of the story. By the way, where does immersion come from? Reality. Why do you care about a story? Because of immersion. It breaks your immersion when you see a woman bossing around a bunch of men. Because you see, wait, 90% should and is men. There's not a lot of women, and there should never be, and realistically, in reality, there are no women in fighting forces. Why is a woman bossing around these guys? How are you telling me that 90% of the fighting force, being men, could not end up as a major in the fighting force? And by the way, because men are built for combat naturally, and because men are naturally built for leadership, and because the majority of the fighting force are men, how is it that there is even a singular female major? It's so ridiculous. It makes no sense, and we all know it's stupid. But because of feminism, they threw in female soldiers, Marines, and of course, our brave and beautiful female major that's bossing everyone around. It's ridiculous, it's stupid, but they're trying to thrust feminism into Warhammer. You have to say stop, you have to tell them no, this is unacceptable. Warhammer is such a mega masculine universe. Women have no place in the battle lines. This is stupid. And again, there's a squad of people out there, the diversity squad, they're like, well, this is the reason why, and this and that. They tried to justify diversity. That is not Warhammer. That is not the fiction. That is not the fantasy. It is white dudes in space. It is crusaders in space. It is Anglo-Saxon men who, from a lot of Christian ideals, ultimately speaking, but you know, like really like overtuned Christian crusader ideals in space. That is the fiction. That is the fantasy. Stop trying to override it. So that's the issue with this game. They try to do a lot of multiculturalism and a lot of feminism. That, of course, is wokeness seeping in modern day. Now, outside of that, is the writing woke? Is the plot woke? No, it is not. So I am very happy about that. We ended up with a story in a game that does not have a woke story or woke writing. We just have a lot of woke casting. That is still a problem. This is the infection. Is right now, it seems harmless. Of course, it's not harmless. This is unacceptable, but a lot of people are going to try and act like it's harmless, okay? And there's only so much longer. It starts seeping into the writing. It starts seeping into the narrative, the story. And we have to say, no, stop this. This is unacceptable. Do not putrefy Warhammer with your modern day sentiments. That is not what Warhammer is. By the way, I have to say this to you too. The ships in this game look absolutely amazing. I forgot to mention that. The ships are absolutely beautiful. Again, dude, the game looks beautiful. The world of Warhammer is so well, faithfully adapted here, and it's so beautiful. It's just the casting that's the problem here. It's absolutely woke. So anyways, man, by the end of my experience with this game, I was really taken aback. So many times I just wanted to walk slowly through the levels, even though I didn't want to take forever to finish the game, because the game, right, it felt like a drag. But at the same time, the world of the game was so beautiful, I just wanted to walk through it. There's so many details, and every part of the world, you're like, holy crap, I just want to take it all in. The skyboxes are amazing. The environments, holy crap, they look so good. This game is a masterpiece in certain aspects. The art direction, technical side looks amazing. The game facilitates amazingly. There's so many things done well with this game and the world of Warhammer. I just have to tell you, bro, it was worth the money when you want to look at it from an artistic lens. When you're looking at, I want to live in the world of Space Marines, the world of Warhammer, then pick up this freaking game. It's absolutely worth it. Of course, when it comes down to the story, it's not so much worth it. And of course, when it comes down to the gameplay, it's, you know, it's passable, but you might want to get the game on discount if you're looking at it from a gameplay perspective. But again, if you love Warhammer and you want to see Warhammer at its fullest, then absolutely give the developers some money. Reward them for the freaking hard work, man. Because this, I can tell already, these guys, they freaking busted their chops making this freaking game. You gotta reward it, man. If there's any one game that you're going to buy this year, or, you know, a series of games, right? I would tell you Stellar Blade is a great game. I would say go get it if you have a PlayStation. I would say that Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, I say that there's a lot of redemptive value to that game. There's a lot of things I think are laughable. By the way, I have 2 impression videos on that game, and I will be coming out with my review sometime soon on the full game. But I would say that there's a lot of redeeming value. It's worth your money if you're buying it at full price. I would also tell you that we have, I mean, what else came out? Holy crap, right now I actually can't tell you what other game is really worthwhile picking up. So honestly, I want to try and think of some other ideas, but I'm going to be honest with you. I think right now, when we're looking at 2024, it's Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Stellar Blade. Oh, shoot, I nearly forgot. Black Myth Wukong is another great one. If you have a PlayStation, go pick it up. The game's amazing in a lot of ways. I have some, by the way, I am going to be coming out with a review for that one too. But this game is probably the 4th game that I can tell to you. Pick it up. It's a great game. Again, depending on what you're looking for out of the game, you can justify the purchase for yourself. But I'm just going to tell you, this is one of the better games coming out in this year, 2024. I don't know what else is going to be good, honestly. But again, I gave you some games. Pick those up if you're looking for a select number of games to pick up. What games are going to honor my time? And am I going to get an experience that I'm looking for? By the way, yes, Tifa is a huge element of why you should pick up Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. She is freaking sexy, freaking hot. And again, just the world and everything, it's just, and the women in general, the women are very effeminate in freaking Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. If you're dying for a game with effeminate women, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth with sexy women, it's a great option right next to Stellar Blade. So outside of that, man, that's what I have to tell you. Those 4 games, Black Myth Wukong, Space Marine 2, these are games that right now they're the best that we're getting this year. Again, there's some aspects that you can take away from Space Marine 2, some aspects that I'm not completely impressed with, but in the end, it's worth your money because there's a bunch of other games, they're not worth your money. And I will say as a special mention, the first Descendant has absolutely beautiful women in the game. Sexy women all over the place. The game, however, and the story sucks. I'm so sad to say that. It's not worth your time. It's not worth your money. However, if you want to look at sexy women, you can pick up the first Descendant, play it for like 3, 4, 5 hours. I am going to be coming out, by the way, with my review for that game. I did finish it, sadly. It was a waste of time. But there was a lot of beautiful women in that game. So if you're dying for another game outside of Stellar Blade and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, if you're dying for another game with beautiful women, then go pick up the first Descendant and only play it for like 5 hours. Just look at all the beautiful women as much as you can and then drop the game before you start wasting your time. I'm saying this to you right now, right here. Do not waste your time in the first Descendant. That is a game that is built on you wasting your time. Don't do it to yourself. Again, Black Myth Wukong, Space Marine 2, Stellar Blade, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. if you have select games that you're trying to look at and ask yourself, what should I pick up? Those are my recommendations right now for this year. So anyways, man, thanks for dropping by, and I will be catching you in the next video. Alright guys, holy crap, hold up a freaking minute before we end the video. I can't believe that this is, I guess, happening, but I played the PvP, and I played the operations game mode, so the PvE and the PvP. I put a lot of time and hours into both, so before we end this review, I want to share a little bit of my thoughts about the operations game mode and the PvP. For one, the freaking PvP is wicked. To my surprise, it is wicked addicting, and much more addicting than I thought it would be. Now, it only has like 3 to 4 maps for the multiplayer, so that kind of sucks. You have 3 game modes, okay, annihilation, zone control, and capture the flag, I think. No, it's King of the Hill, and then there's zone capture. Almost the same thing, but you're right, there's one that's moving the zone, and the other has just set in stone zones that you can capture. So that's pretty much what we've got for the PvP. Again, really fun to play with all the different classes. You got Bulwark, you got the dude with the zip wire, whatever it is, you can hook onto enemies and reel into them. That's cool. He has it's a grapple hook. You've got the sniper, you got soldier, you got heavy class, you got 6 overall. Oh, Vanguard is the one with the grapple hook, yeah. So a lot of these classes are really good to play, largely fun. I played the assault class, which is the jetpack class, and holy crap, bro, they nerfed it by the time of me recording this, but before I was recording this, before the update that they did, the jump pack class was, holy crap, it was so effing good. So much fun. You soar up to the air, and then you just sit there for a while picking a target, and then you can land on them with this shockwave attack. It's freaking awesome, and you're just meleeing everyone to bits, and then you immediately jetpack into the air, and then you do it again. You typically die like after a couple of times, but they reduced the recharge on the jetpack, so that's a little bit unfortunate. It's not as good as it used to be. I'm a little bit sad about that, and in fact, I mean, it just makes the class feel a lot harder to play. I don't know what else they nerfed about it, because clearly they nerfed some other aspects. I can feel it, but outside of that, you got the other classes. They're a bunch of fun. You know, the heavy class you can use as a permanent weapon. You can use the Gatling gun. You can use the multi-melta, is I think it's what it's called. You can use those special weapons that are the heavy weapons. So that's really cool. And overall, man, it's just tons of fun. In fact, like every time that a match would be over and I had to go back through a freaking menu screen or loading screen, I would be like, oh frick, it's already over, right? Like, dang, I was just getting into it. It was tons of fun. So anyways, that's the PvP. A lot of fun, man. It really makes it feel much more worthwhile that I spent $70 on this game, because I was putting a lot of good time into that. By the way, Horde mode is going to be coming out somewhere in the future. We're going to see how good that is, and maybe I'll leave that into this review. If it turns out that this review is taking too long to come out with, we'll see. I'll let you know once we cover the PvE here. So anyways, the PvE is a bunch of, it's decent fun. I mean, so these are unique levels set aside from the campaign, okay? So there's that one factor right there. But then on top of that, you know, you have some unique circumstances, unique bosses that you get to fight in the campaign. You can unlock new gear. You can level up your gear. And there's certain variations with the weapons that you're using that you can upgrade them in certain ways to get certain stat modifications. So there's a lot more variability to your weapons than, for some reason, than what you see in the campaign. So that's cool. And you can play with 2 other people. Largely, it's pretty fun. It's pretty good. You can scale up rather quickly, I would kind of argue. Within the course of what was it was like, I think 12 hours, I was able to get one of my characters, or no, 8 hours I think is what it was. I was able to get one of my characters up to level 25. And that was me not playing that character completely exclusively. So you level up pretty slow, realistically speaking, but you are able to max out a character much sooner than I was actually expecting. So it's like, it's a bit of good and bad. I mean, it's still too grindy, honestly, the operations game mode, but at least you can max out a character within some amount of time. I mean, I guess, you know what though? If you know what you're doing and you're playing on the maximum difficulty, because once you're good enough, you can pretty much pick up a new class and play on the maximum difficulty without too many issues. So, I mean, at first it's pretty difficult, but you get used to it, and then it's pretty much a cakewalk after that. So, for myself personally though, I would say if you know what you're doing, it would probably take anywhere between 4 to 5 hours to max out any one of the classes. So, I mean, that's a decent amount of time. The only issue is that it might feel really grindy and like it's a waste of time, and super redundant if you're leveling up multiple characters, because that's the truth. Yes, it is really redundant and grindy. It's honestly not even really worth it, if I'm being honest with you. If you want to max out one character, it's worth it. Operations is fun enough and new enough to you to play through it enough times over that you max out one character. But once you're maxing out multiple characters, it's a waste of time. Honestly, just don't do it. Just wait for when Horde mode comes out, and hopefully then the XP is a little bit easier to get through the Horde mode. I'm hoping it is, but yeah, right now the operations are really redundant. Now, again, they're unique enough, and the developers, they put so much attention to detail and so much time and so much love into all these different levels. I don't see much issue in playing all 6 of them over and over again. However, I do not recommend that you play every single one of those missions over and over again. If you're trying to level up, that is. Because some of the missions are just wicked harder than the other ones. I mean, specifically, the first 2 missions are the easiest. It's all the missions after the first 2 that get a lot more difficult, a lot more time exhaustive. I mean, those are the more, I guess you could say, air quotes, cinematic missions. So they'll definitely take longer for you, and I just don't know if that trade-off is really worth it. Especially if you're trying to level up and get better gear, or well, the upgrades to get the better gear. And also, again, the skill tree takes a long time to get through, but you still, you can level up at a largely acceptable rate, you know. I don't know what I really think about it, but man, it's so redundant after you max out your first character. So outside of that, man, it's good. I was not expecting the PvE and the PvP to be as fun as they ended up being, and I did enjoy overall the operations game mode. It was a good extension to my playtime past the campaign, and it is fun to play with other players too. For the most part, as I remember right now, most people were not raging morons when I was playing, so that was nice. Mostly everybody, as of right now, and maybe because I'm not playing with a bunch of EBT gamers, I mean, everyone I'm playing with, they had to spend $70 or more to play the game. So they have to have higher IQs. For the most part, everyone's pretty largely good. As I was playing through, I'm trying to think about it. I don't think anyone was like really that bad, as I remember. So yeah, I mean, that was pretty nice and impressive that I was not running into a bunch of morons for players. That's as I'm remembering on the spot here, but maybe I'm wrong. So anyways, I mean, for what I remember, I was pretty happy with the players. So I'm hoping for you, whenever you're playing it, that you have a good time with it. But yeah, outside of that, man, on to the next review. I'm gonna mess you up, brother. Hey, man. Hold up. Hold up. Just let me get this. Yeah, you're done. You're done now. Oh yeah, you're done. Yeah. Oh yeah,
The heretic sorcerer
hot guy stuff. What we're talking about. Oh dear God. Dear God, brother. Getting wrecked up the old noose. Oh, you going to get wrecked now, brother. See, man. You done now, brother. Oh my gosh. Rockin' stone, brother. For the rockin' stone. But we ain't going home. Oh, you're going down. It's so over for you. Gosh, bro. Man, this reminds me like every time I walk in and your girlfriend's there and it's just taken. Immediately. We take that punani.